We're approaching the holiday of Sukkos. There's a positive commandment that for a 7-day period we must sit in the sukkah. In the words of the Talmud, we have to leave our permanent abode and enter into a temporary abode. In the words, we must leave the diras keva and enter into the diras arai, the temporary. What is it all about? What are we commemorating? We're commemorating that when the Jews left Egypt and they went into the desert, they had sat and dwelt in huts. As the pasuk says, as the verse says, "Man yedu dorosechem ki b'sukkos hoshavti bnei Yisrael," that your generation should know that when you left Egypt, you dwelt in booths, and these booths, these huts. The Torah, which is the first codifier of the law, writes that we left Egypt in spring. So if that's the case, the holiday of Sukkot should be in the spring, not in the fall. So why did the Torah set the holiday that we must sit in these huts, these booths, conforming to the criteria of what a kosher sukkah is? It must be done in the fall rather than the spring. So he explains that if it would be in the spring, where people leave their winter homes to go into a more airy type of residence, because the spring is leading to summer, so it wouldn't be obvious why the person is leaving his permanent residence to go into his temporary residence. However, when winter is approaching, which the precursor is the autumn, is the fall, why does one leave his permanent abode, residence, to go to a temporary? Evidently, it's to commemorate specifically, you're not going there in terms of because of the comfort level, but rather it's to commemorate the mitzvah of leaving one's permanent residence to go to a temporary residence. It's purely for the sake of the mitzvah of dwelling in this temporary residence. We'd spoken about the commemorative aspect of the sukkah. What are we commemorating? Factually, they did leave. They left in the spring. They didn't leave in the fall. So how do we parallel what we do to actually what happened? Why should one leave a permanent residence, a more secure residence, to go into a temporary residence in terms of comfort, in terms of security? Why should one want to do such a thing? And especially where it is available. So evidently, it's an indication, it's a demonstration of faith that security is not only determined by one's physical situation. One's comfort level is not determined by an amenity necessarily, but rather a significant part of confidence and security is based on one's faith. I had mentioned in the other Dvar Torah that the Talmud tells us that what we actually are commemorating are the clouds of glory. It's not a commemorative, but it's really a reenactment, a re-experience of what happened when we left Egypt. The prophet says, God says, in the name of God, Zochati lo chesed nurayich. I will remember forever the kindness of the youth. What's the kindness of our youth which we displayed to God? Lechteich achrei b'midbar be'eretz lo zerua. We went into a desert, an unplanted desert, a wilderness where there was no security. How does one survive? We had no provisions. The basis for our survival was because God said we should follow him to the desert. So we left a more secure location to go into a location which was fraught with danger, which we had no security. The amenities of existence were not there. The elements or actually we'd have to compromise our existence. But yet, because God said we should go, we had the faith, and God says, I will never forget that kindness of your youth, that you demonstrated, that trust and faith in me. When we go into the sukkah and leave our permanent residence, which is a secure residence, for something which may not have that comfort level, it's really a reenactment. It's a replay of what we did when we left Egypt. And especially since the sukkah is more than just a commemoration, but rather it's a reenactment. And is the essence of the clouds of glory. It is exactly what we did when we left Egypt thousands of years ago.